Hey everybody, today I want to talk about this lesson here. It used to be basically a summary note, so your assignment is basically to read it. So the activity today is read marketing research and product development, but they're sort of dot jot, so I'm just gonna be here to elaborate. Plus there's a huge chunk of it that we can't really do in distance learning very well. So let's open that up, take a look at it. When you click it, you should get this. So product development and marketing research go hand in hand. You can't develop a product. Well, you can, but you'd be crazy to develop a product without getting any research about your target market, it's called, right? So who you intend to sell to. And sometimes you don't really know. You think you know, but then you find there's other people who might be interested in your product, right? So without research, you don't know. And you might think everyone might like the color red, and then you discover that only 10% of your potential target market only like the color red, so don't make it red, or give them the option of more than one color, right? And of course, then you discover that having different colors makes the product more expensive, and so there's all these different competing things. But you can't make those decisions, decide what to do, how and when, without the information. You'll waste a lot of money. Your product may not meet, it won't create consumer satisfaction, which of course means no one's going to buy it. It'll get bad word of mouth, reputation will be bad, and etc. Right? So it's in company's best interest to do the research ahead of time. And then there's a whole process that flows. So what I want you to be aware of is what the process kind of looks like. So one of the first things, as you can see, phase one is this concept phase. There's a brainstorming phase. Sometimes you bring in people where you can get more rich information. You have conversations. It's called anecdotal evidence. So you bring in they're called focus groups, and they can be from 10 to 20 people, and you just sit around and talk about this sort of area where you would want to come up with a product. So maybe I don't know, just something that irritates me are power cords for my computer. They keep fraying, right? And then I got to get a new one. There's a product that's inferior, or at least an aspect of it is inferior. So you could bring in a focus group and say, well, what else don't you like about this? What would you want it to look like? How much would you want it to weigh? And people would start talking, and you start to get these ideas. And in other words, brainstorming. And there's other ways you can get this information, right? You're trying to find either a need that is not being fulfilled in society. And remember Maslow, there's all these different levels of needs. Depends on who you're talking to and what industry you're in. But you're either trying to find one that's not fulfilled or is being met very poorly by shabby products or crappy customers, or companies with bad service or whatever, right? And then you try to figure out what could you change about the existing product, or what brand new product could you come up with to meet the need. And remember, product means good or service, right? It sounds like just good, but it's not, it's both. So the next thing you would do then is, and marketing research can be more than one step, usually is, right? So you can go do some preliminary research. So that focus group is a kind of way, but you also go do surveys, talk to people, gather data from professional data collection services. And there's lots of them now. Social media companies make their money from selling your data about you. That's one of the ways they figure out how to market and how to target their sales to certain people. But there's other more traditional old-fashioned ones where people will go out and ask questions, do surveys, collect information. Other ones, you can just observe the market, right, to come up with some of these ideas. And then you can sort of take that information, come up with a product, talk to your engineers, come up with something, a feasible maybe prototype or example, and then bring in more focus groups. Do a survey on that specific sort of prototype, your first run, your first try. And then you find out they like this, they don't like that. You make some more changes, and it goes on a cycle until you feel you have something that's marketable, it's called, right? A potentially successful and profitable product. That's sort of the step. And then after you have all that information, before you go and make 1 million of them and try to sell them, you kind of have to decide, okay, we've been through this research several times. We got a prototype. We've asked a bunch of people, here's how much it costs. Is it too much? Can we even sell it for this much? Will people want it? And you bring all that information together and you decide whether or not to proceed. And there's a lot of steps involved too, right? Because maybe you can make it, but can you then get it out? Can you get big wholesale companies like your Walmarts and your Costco's and your Amazons to buy this in huge quantities to, push down what's called the distribution chain onto consumers? Because maybe they won't want it. because you might have everything else perfect, and those big buyers, they don't want to buy any. So if it's not in their stores, nobody's going to see it, and how are you going to sell a million of them? So there's all sorts of these decisions. But this is generally the process. Come up with an idea, however you can get that idea in your head. Do some research, maybe a few steps, right? Get some preliminary research on your concept. Come up with maybe an actual original version, a prototype, a demo. Get some more feedback. Tweak the idea, tweak the product. Finalize it. Make a decision. And if it's a go, then produce and distribute and advertise. So, what's after this, we're not going to do. But when you're doing your marketing assignment, these are still things you might want to think about. And you can certainly ask, people you encounter, which are greatly reduced in number nowadays, but you could ask, your family or whatever, what are some of these things, right? For research. So, like, what type of consumer would use this product? Or what type of habits do the people in what I think are my target market have every day? And what types of products and services do they use? And you should think of yourself, what do I use that irritates me every day? Because it doesn't work properly or it's not as convenient as it could be. Those are great ways to come up with ideas, right? So you could use this to put some ideas in your head to help you start thinking. Or you do a Google search and find a list of other questions if you want. But we are not officially going to do the marketing research part like I usually do, because we just don't have the time and it's too difficult to facilitate with this distant learning thing. So just be aware of, these are the phases. And sort of in your mind, in a very simple way, you're going to have to come up with a good project idea and make a marketing plan for a product you've conceived of. You're going to kind of have to still, in your brain, do the steps in a very simplified way, right? All right, so on that note, let that all digest. Take a day to summarize what you've learned about the marketing mix and the marketing product development process, and then you'll be ready to start.